begin next week going over turning them back in. So right now you have the journal articles that you reviewed, and that's a written assignment. You can just give me the written review, and I'll take that on Friday. Okay. Then we're going to start out. Next week, I want to start the individual presentations of the famous people that you have, the famous engineers. So everybody's supposed to do a PowerPoint. Your PowerPoint should be 3 to 5 minutes. Famous person in the quotation marks. Quotation marks are used for a lot of things in English, but one thing they're used for is sometimes when people do this, they're sort of making fun of it, right? It's like it's a joke. So in this case, the people that you've been assigned, most of them did something really special, something really important, and yet most of the general population won't ever have heard of them because usually engineers don't become famous. Right? So a lot of you have somebody who's not very famous even though they did something that's really important. So there might be a movie star or a television star or a singer, somebody like that, who's much more famous and did something that's much less important than what these people did. So, okay, so. Okay, so there's two new assignments for the end of the semester, end of the course. The other one is a group assignment. So your group will prepare by itself. Okay? All right. In the individual assignment, the first thing is to prepare your resume. What's a resume? Okay, so the individual assignment is based on your career. So a resume is the professional document, which may be, in a lot of places, it's just one page, but in some professions, it's quite a bit longer. Like my resume is something like 30 pages now. But the resume is a summary of your professional qualifications, your professional accomplishments, and your professional interests. Okay? So everybody's will be different. I'll give you a format for this in a few minutes. I'm going to erase this in a few minutes, and then I'll show you the format. Okay? Any question about the idea of a resume? So then, after you have your resume prepared, I want you to go find some job announcements. Think about what happens after you graduate. So you can look anywhere you want. You can look, excuse me. You can look at newspapers. You can look at ASME webpage. You can look at other web pages like that. You can look in the backs of magazines, online. you would look, this will be good practice for you. Because in 2 or 3 years, you're going to be looking for a job, most of you. And maybe you've never tried it before. So I want you to go find some job announcements. If you get to the right kind of source, you should be able to find lots of job announcements. Because actually engineers usually have pretty good employment in most places. So you might be able to find hundreds of these. Once you find these job announcements, pick the 3 that you like the best. Okay? And then pretend like you're going to apply for that job today. And you write cover letters, 1 for each job. So here's the way it works. Let's say that I'm an employer. I put out a job announcement. My job announcement might say, I'm an HVAC company. I build air conditioning systems. I need to hire mechanical engineers that know something about air conditioning, know something about machinery, have a good academic background, some work experience is helpful, some knowledge of computer programming is helpful, right? It has a few words like that. That's a typical job announcement. You're interested in that job. So normally when you apply for the job, you send 2 things. One thing you send is your resume. Your resume usually doesn't change until you do something new. So you would use the same resume and send it for whatever job you're applying for. But the second thing you do is you write a letter. And the letter should be very specific for that job. I'm interested in your job. I believe I'm well qualified because I know something about air conditioning. I learned in my undergraduate studies. Maybe you list the courses that you studied. I know something about computer programming. I'm experienced with C++ and with Excel and MATLAB. I have a degree in mechanical engineering from Thai Nguyen University of Technology. I studied in the advanced program in English, so I have a second language. Maybe you have another language. You should list that if you have another language. Okay? So it's a specific letter that tells this job why you're really qualified for this job. So the resume is a general description of you, sort of like your personal biography. And the cover letter goes with a specific job. And I want you to do 3 of them. Pick any 3 you want. Pretend like you're looking for a job. It's common in most places that an employer, when they advertise a job, will get a lot more applications than the number of jobs that they have. Right? So maybe I have 1 job available. I put out an advertisement. 10 people apply. So I'm only going to pick 1 out of 10. And then the other guy runs an ad, and he gets 20 applications. He picks 1 out of 20, and so on. So if you're on the other side, if you're the engineer looking for the job, there's a good chance you'll have to send out a lot of different applications before you finally get an offer. So the chance that you get an offer on your first application is usually not very good. So that's why I want you to try 3. Okay? Some students at my university, when they get close to graduating, they'll prepare a resume, and they'll start writing cover letters and looking at jobs. And they might do 20 or even 50. Right? Now, some of them are really good at it. If you have a good academic record, if you have some nice experiences, we'll talk about that in a minute on the resume. And if you're well qualified, maybe you'll get a lot of offers. It also depends on the current economy. If the economy is really strong and growing, maybe there aren't enough engineers to go around. And so everybody, an advertisement, I said a minute ago, the guy runs an ad. He gets 10 offers for 1, or 10 applications for 1 job. Sometimes it's the other way around. There's 10 jobs for 1 application. When I graduated from my undergraduate degree, bachelor's degree, it happened to be a really good economy in the United States. I sent out 10 applications when I graduated. I got 8 job offers out of 10 applications. So that was really nice. It made me feel like I was special. Actually, I was just lucky in timing. But it was also nice because it gave me 8 different jobs I could choose from. They were different locations around the United States. I'm really interested in living in this city. I'm not so interested in that city. So you can think about that kind of thing. It's a lot better than having just one job offer, and you have to go to that city, you have to take that job, maybe you're not so interested. So one of the things that happened that was sort of strange was, I think I mentioned before, the job I took was with a big jet aircraft engine manufacturer. They make engines for jet airplanes. And it's a big company, and it had 4,000 to 5,000 engineers. Okay, it's too loud. Quiet, please. So different jobs inside of the same company. I got offers for 3 different jobs from the same company to do different kinds of work. So that was also pretty interesting. Okay, so does anybody have any question about this assignment? Okay, good. Have fun with it. Pretend like you're going for a job. I'll read your cover letters. I'll look at your resume. I'll pretend like I was going to make an offer, and then I can give you some feedback, and maybe it'll help in 2 years. So, back to thinking about this whole course, we started off discussing what is an engineering philosophy. Then we got more and more modern, and we talked about how engineering became a formal education. There were formal qualifications. We talked about accreditation. We talked about the legal definition of an engineer from country to country. Right? Then we talked about what mechanical engineers do, different specializations within mechanical engineering. We talked about inventing our own ideas for what we would do in the future if we could do anything. Right? You're looking at the lives of some famous engineers right now, some famous people, see what they did with their lives. And last, you can plan what you're going to do with your career. So this is, I hope, a nice logical progression of topics for you. Okay, topic number 2. This you can do as a group. You're going to prepare a proposal. This is a very specific word, proposal. I just spent the last 2 years working for a U.S. government science research agency, engineering research agency, and most of my job was spent evaluating proposals. Okay? Now, what is a proposal?
Some idea is supposed to be something special.
Yeah, it's usually an offer to become partners in some way, right? So we use this word in English. You use this word to talk about when you think you want to get married, right? So maybe you have a nice girlfriend, you really love her, you decide I'd like to get married. So you say to her, "Would you like to get married? I'd like to be married to you." That we call that a proposal. That's a marriage proposal. But in business, when you write a proposal, it's typically in business when you write a proposal, you are trying to sell something, and you have to convince the other person that what you're trying to sell is good for them and they should buy it from you. Okay? So I want each group to prepare a proposal. I'm going to give you more details about what goes in your proposal, but before I do, it should be for a minimum of 6 months. Okay? So the thing that you're going to propose, you're going to sell your expertise. That's what you're going to do. You're graduating, you're becoming very well qualified. This is to go look for an actual job, a regular job. But lots of engineers don't take a regular job with somebody else. They work for themselves, like a consultant. Right? So that's a proposal. It's when you sell your expertise. So you're going to propose doing some work, and I want that work to take at least 6 months. So in other words, it should be a nice big project. And it should employ at least the minimum number of people in your group. It could employ a lot more. So as an example, you might propose to build a new highway from Tai Nguyen to Hanoi. That's going to take more than 6 months, and it's going to take hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people. Okay, that could be a proposal. You could propose to develop a new airplane. That will take you more than 6 months. A new car would take more than 6 months. You could propose to build a new water system. You could propose to build irrigation. You could propose anything you want. You could propose to build a new computer-controlled manufacturing facility. You could propose to write a new software program, especially those of you in the higher level language class. Right now that you have some idea about the logic and the branching, what would be a really good, useful, big software program? And you can see how long it might take you, because it takes a while to get all those statements right. And if it's a big, fancy program, it might have millions of statements. Okay? So your group, the same groups that you used to come up with the 2 ideas, stay in those same groups. There were 13 groups, right? 3 in dynamics, 3 in solids, 3 in fluids, 4 in computer math. Each group needs to prepare a written proposal and submit a proposal. So both of these assignments have the same basic bottom line. The bottom line is, imagine that you're graduating or graduated, and prepare a proposal and you get a contract, you can create your own company. And that company has to get enough income to last for at least 6 months. Okay? Why 6 months? I just decided 6 months was a good figure for Singapore. The way that a lot of companies survive is that they have multiple projects at one time. Yeah, let's a little bit quieter, please. So a lot of companies survive by having multiple projects at the same time, and they propose in each project to work only part of the time. Okay? And you can do that if you want, but the total amount of time that you should propose would support you for 6 months. So for instance, if I'm a big consulting company, maybe I have 10 projects going on at once. Some of those projects last 5 years, but they're not 5 straight years of 100% employment. It's like I'll work on this for 25% of the time for 5 years. So that would count as 1.25 year, right? 25% of 5. In academics, it's very common for professors to have research contracts to work on with students. But professors also have to teach classes, and maybe they're on a committee or something like that. So when I'm a professor and I propose a research project, I might propose that I'm going to spend 10% of my time on it, or 20% of my time. So it only has to pay for 10% of my salary or 20% of my salary, because all day long I have other stuff I have to do, right, like teaching. But I might, in my proposal, I might propose to pay 100% of student assistant's salary. So the students can work on the project all day long, and I will help them 10% of my time or 20% of my time. Okay? All right. And if you're the boss of a big company, that's usually how your proposal is going to end up looking. Right? If you're the boss, every project that comes into the company, you'll spend a little bit of time being the supervisor, but you're not going to do most of the work. Most of the work will be done by your employees. So maybe I hire Casper to work 100% on this project, and Celine works 100% on this project, right? And I'm the boss, and I take some money, but I don't actually do most of the work. I just supervise. There's one of those quote things, supervise. Hey, okay. All right, any questions about this?
So I think the contract organization.
Yeah, contract. Well, a successful proposal would result in a contract. The proposal is the offer to do this work together. If the other side agrees, then you write a contract. Okay? Okay, so on this side, the resume.
Cover letter, do we have a specific form?
Yeah, I can give you a form for it. Okay, I'll do that in a minute. So for the resume, normally it should be a nice big whole piece of paper, nice and clean. You want to spend a lot of time to make it look beautiful. It should look very impressive to the person that receives it. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to sell yourself. That you're a very well-qualified professional person, you're smart, you're ambitious, you know what you're doing. If your resume is sloppy, if it doesn't look professional, it's not going to help you. It's like a CV. Yeah, do you CV? Some people call it curriculum vitae. Is this what you need? Yeah. Yeah, CV and resume are essentially the same thing. Okay. Do you have one already? Did you write one for Louie or something like that? Does she exercise she does? Okay, good. I can see it. It should be easy for you. So you should have your name. Your name should be in the center at the top line, right? It's like the title of the thing. And then you can have a little bit of personal information if you want, but some people don't do this. And in some countries, including the United States, some of the personal information the employer is not allowed to ask you because they're not supposed to take it by law. They're not supposed to consider it. So one thing is whether you're male or female. It's not supposed to matter. Everybody should have an equal opportunity. It's also not supposed to matter how old you are. Everybody should have an equal chance, whether you're 20 or 70 or somewhere in the middle. So kinds of things that people write in some places would be illegal. So on a lot of CVs, they don't really put anything personal. But if you were going to put something personal, you might include when you were born, you might include whether or not you're married, you might include whether or not you have children, that kind of information. But I don't want you to put that on the resume that you're going to give me, okay? So don't put that on there. Okay. Normally, the first thing that you write is an objective. Okay? And this means, what is your professional goal? So your objective might be, I don't know, a highly responsible job in mechanical engineering. Something like that. You can also make it more specific than that. Mechanical engineering is kind of general. So it becomes a little bit of a game. Because I gave an example a minute ago of a job offer of a company that's looking for somebody that knows something about air conditioning. So if you just say mechanical engineering, maybe that's not specific enough and that person doesn't think about you being an expert in air conditioning. So maybe you want to say air conditioning. But then if you say air conditioning here, for another job, it might sound too specific. It sounds like you're not qualified. So it is a little bit of a game to try to figure out what are the best words to put in there. And I said that you should have one resume and then write a different cover letter. So what most people do is they keep this relatively general and they make the specific things inside the cover letter. And that's why you have a different cover letter for each job. Okay? Then you should have an education. You should have a list of your education. Right? Now, for somebody like me, as old as I am, and plus I have a bachelor's degree, master's degree, and PhD, so I don't say anything about my high school. It doesn't matter anymore. Right? That was so long ago, it has nothing to do with it. But in your case, the most recent degree that you have is the degree from your high school. Right? So until you finish a degree from TNUT, you might as well list the high school. What else can you say? So you would put, normally on the education, you put the degree you get, the institution, and the year that you graduated. That's typical. So you would write something like bachelor's degree. By the way, is that what the degree is called from advanced program? It's called bachelor's degree. It's not the way it is? Okay. So you would write bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering advanced program. Tai Nguyen University of Technology, 2013. Yeah, you would write something like bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering advanced program. Right? Tai Nguyen University of Technology, 2013. Now, because this program is brand new, outside of Tai Nguyen University of Technology, maybe not everybody knows exactly what it is. So in this case, I think it would be useful underneath it to maybe put a parenthesis and say advanced program is an English language mechanical engineering program based on the U.S. education system or something like that. Or just a little bit of an explanation of what the advanced program really is. Okay, underneath education, you put experience. And again, this, as you get older, what you put in this category may change. So for you starting out right now, probably you don't have a lot of real mechanical engineering experience yet, because you're not really mechanical engineers yet. So maybe you had a high school job, I don't know, maybe you helped plant rice, or maybe you worked in a restaurant, or you fixed motorcycles, or something like that. And so it's fine to list all of those jobs. The idea with the experience is you want to give the impression that you're a responsible person. that you can keep a job, that you show up every day when you're supposed to, you do the job, you do it well, you go home at night. So that's the most important thing right now in experience. Now, as you get older, as your career goes on, you're going to want the experience to show that you're really well qualified as a mechanical engineer. So anything that you can put in there that makes it sound more like mechanical engineering would be great. So maybe now you get a job at the end of this higher level language, you get a job writing computer programs. Okay, that's a lot closer to mechanical engineering than working in a restaurant. Right? And doing something mechanical like fixing motorcycles. Right? That's better for mechanical engineering probably than, say, planting rice. Right? So when I started out, for my experience, one of the things I did, it hardly exists anymore, this job, but when I was a teenager, I had a job delivering newspapers all around the city where I lived. I'd get up early every morning, carry this big bag of newspapers, and deliver them everywhere. Well, it showed a lot of responsibility because I had to get up really early every morning and do that 7 days a week. Okay, it was hard work. It didn't really have anything to do with engineering. But I would always put that on my experience because it did show I was responsible. Okay, nowadays, at this point in my life, I've had about 10 or 15 different professional engineering jobs. So, a long time ago, I quit saying anything about delivering newspapers. It doesn't have anything to do with anything anymore. Right? My qualification now is based on the last 10 or 20 years, not something I did when I was a teenager. Okay? But for you, you should list your experience. And it's okay if you didn't get paid. Alright, some people on experience, they think they should only list a job where they actually were hired and they actually got money for doing it. But maybe for instance, you work in a family business and your parents don't really pay you, but you do have some responsibility inside that business. You should put that in there. Remember, the point is, you're trying to convince the person who's looking at this that you would be a really good worker for them. So anything you can put in here that makes you sound like a good worker, that's what you want. And you should have, inside of here, you should put what kind of job it was, the name of it. So what job, where, put the dates you held it, maybe you had it for, and then a brief description. And the description should definitely include anything that you were responsible for yourself. Okay? Again, I know I said this a couple times, I can't emphasize enough. What you're trying to do in this part of your resume is convince the person reading it that you would be a good employee, that you would be reliable, you would show up, you're willing to work hard. Okay? So like when I was describing being a paper boy, I didn't just say paper boy. I said I had responsibility to get up early 7 days per week and make sure that those papers got delivered to everybody that ordered one. Right? So I make it sound like it's really, okay? And even if you put working in a restaurant, let's say you put working in a restaurant, you can always add some words to make it sound like, you were really critical to this operation. It was my responsibility to make sure that every customer got exactly the food they ordered and they loved it. So I'm great. I know in some cultures it can be difficult to write a good resume because in some cultures it's considered very impolite to say something good about yourself. Right? You should be very modest. Forget that. When you're writing a professional resume, you should think about it the opposite way. You should sound like Superman. Or at least Batman. Okay. Any questions about this? On objective, you can say that you're looking, it's okay in this part to say that you're looking for a job. But don't say it like that. Looking for a job makes it sound like, gee, I need to make some money, I'll do anything. I can wash your dishes for you, no problem. I can walk the dog, whatever you need, I can do it. That's not what you're doing, right? So you're going to use a word like seeking a position, and then it says with a high responsibility and based on good technical skills because I'm great and I've got all that. Okay, now underneath experience, something else you might have. Just made my paper longer. You want high school, I don't know, maybe your high school gave an award to the best student in math. If you won that award, you should definitely say that. Right? Maybe they gave an award to the best student in, I don't know, English or some other foreign language. Put it in there. Maybe you won an award for being a good athlete. Maybe your football team won the school championship. Go ahead and put it in there. Again, you're trying to convince the person reading it that you're really well qualified. You're Superman. So anything that you did where you were competing against other people and you won, you should put it in there. Even if it doesn't really, it's best, of course, if it sounds like engineering. But even if it isn't engineering, it's still good. Okay. Then the last thing might be relevant project experience. Okay, so on relevant project experience, or something like that, you can make up your own title. This is where you might go in and describe individual pieces of projects that you worked on that are particularly, that show that you did something particularly well by yourself. All right, so let me use my case in the industry when I was working for Pratt & Whitney. Under experience, I might have written, I worked at Pratt & Whitney was the name of the aircraft company. Okay, I worked at Pratt & Whitney Aircraft Company between the 2 dates that I worked there, blah, blah, blah. Down here I might say, at Pratt & Whitney, I analyzed the thermal stress gradient across the combustion section of a jet engine. So that's where I get really specific about what I did. I used finite element analysis to analyze the thermal stresses in the combustion section of a jet engine. So now they could really know exactly what I did. Okay? And I think in your relevant project experience, as you go through your undergraduate career, the TNUT, you could list some of the projects that you do that are particularly good. Right? So maybe by the end of higher level language, you'll list something, one of the projects that you do in there. I wrote a big C++ program with 1,000 lines in it that calculated whatever calculates. And then people say, oh, okay, so this person knows a little bit about C++, so that's good. So this is where you can put specific things in that you're particularly good at. Okay? Some people at the bottom put something like hobbies. I don't know if that's really necessary, but some people do that. Hobbies. I like to jog. I like to sing karaoke. I like to eat peanuts. Whatever you like to do, you can put it in as a hobby. I think that's up to you whether you include that. There's good and bad. The good side of that is that if the other person happens to have the same hobby, that they might feel more friendly towards you, especially if it's something a little unusual. Like, I don't know, let's say bungee jumping. Not everybody likes to bungee jump. Some people would never bungee jump. But let's say that your hobby is bungee jumping, and the guy reading the thing happens to love bungee jumping. Oh, you like to bungee jump? Cool. Now he's thinking, okay, if this guy's working here, we could go bungee jump together on the weekend. Right? So, I mean, it sounds stupid, but it might help. Yeah.
What is government?
What's that?
What the word you say?
Bungee jumping? You don't know what bungee jumping is? Yeah, bungee jumping is when they have a real long cord. They usually tie it around your ankles. You get on a tall bridge or a building or a mountain somewhere and you jump off. You boing, or that's bungee jumping, yeah. Not me. But I know people that like to do this. And so like I said, in case the other guy likes to do it, why not? Okay. One other thing I want to mention, there's one special skill that I think you have, that if you're applying for jobs inside of Vietnam, and probably in a lot of other countries too, one of your good qualifications is that you studied in English, that you speak English, right? So you want to make sure that you get that in here somewhere. So probably right in here, maybe you could add it again. Sometimes it's a good idea if you have a particular skill that you want to emphasize, find some way to put it in here more When you talk about a degree and institution, you could say I have my degree in the advanced program, and then you could give a little description of the advanced program. The advanced program is a 100% English language program for studying mechanical engineering. So now that fits it in one time. Then down here for your experience or relevant project experience, I studied 5 years in English. Right? So now it's in there again. Hobbies. I like speaking English. I like watching English movies. I like right? Whatever. But you make the point over and over again. And then the other person can't ignore it, right? It's in their face. They have to understand this. Okay. So that'll be the resume. And if there's other things that Louis suggested that you put in your resume or CV, you can go ahead and add them. You don't have to use exactly my format. But this is what I propose to you. Now, in my resume, I said my resume is 30 pages. That sounds ridiculous. But it's kind of typical for a professor to have a resume like that. So some of the categories I have in my resume, just to give you an example, I have a list of courses that I've taught in my career. And I give a little brief description of each course. So somebody has an idea of some expertise that I have for teaching. In my career, I've had a lot of graduate students, about 50 master's students and about 15 PhDs. I have a list of all their names. Because some of them, after they graduated, they've gone on and they've become quite successful themselves. So I list them. These were my students. So it looks good for me if those students become successful later. Right? I've written maybe 100 or so journal articles. So you're now reviewing these journal articles. I have a list of every journal article. It gives just the name of the article, the name of the magazine where it was published, and that kind of thing. But each one takes 2 or 3 lines. So that list of journal articles by itself fills up a few pages. I've had a lot of research grants. I've been the supervisor for a lot of research projects. So I list each project one at a time. And who the sponsor was, who the partner was, how much money they gave for the research project. Why do I say that? Because it looks like something that would be an indication that I'm well qualified. So if I get a research project for, say, $1 million, somebody thought my work was worth $1 million. Of course I'm going to put that in my CV, right? I want to sound like Superman. So if you have any of those kinds of things, include them in your CV. At this stage of your career, you probably don't have those, but you will. As time goes on, you'll have more and more items like that. Any question about it? Good. Okay, so now let's talk about a cover letter. I highly recommend that you take a little bit of time. Your cover letter also needs to look really professional, really neat, right? It should be completely spell checked. You know what spell checking is? Yeah. It should be completely spell checked. If you use Microsoft Word will indicate if it thinks that you're making an error in grammar, right? Either it puts red if it knows you're making a mistake, and it puts green if it thinks you might be making a mistake. So pay attention to that. I would propose that you never send a letter that has any of those color markings in it. Make sure you get them all out. Figure them out. If you need help with it, if you can't figure out what the error is, go talk to Louis or somebody else you know who speaks English and have them help you get that out. But make sure the letter is exactly perfect. Because again, you're trying to convince the person that you're sending it to that they should hire you because you're smart, you're responsible, you're well qualified. If you send them a letter that's full of mistakes, it doesn't look good. It's not helpful. All right, so on the letter, my opinion is it looks good to have one of 2 formats. In one format, everything is left justified with a gap over here of about 1.25 inches. And in this format, at the very top, the first thing you should have is the date. And in Microsoft Word, there's a function that will automatically put the date in, the actual date, the date that you write the letter. So you can put the function in there, then you don't have to type a new date every time. Okay? The next thing you should have underneath that is the name and the address of the person you're sending it to. Okay? So let's say you go and you find an advertisement for a job, and it's from the Vietnamese Steel Corporation. And somewhere in the advertisement it says, if you're interested in this job, send your application to Mr. Nguyen at the Vietnamese Steel Corporation. So right here you're going to have Mr. Nguyen, Vietnamese Steel Corporation. Put in all the details you know. If they have the full address, put the whole address there. Right? If it has his full name, put his full name there. If it gives his position title, send this to Mr. Nguyen, Vice President, Vietnamese Steel Corporation. Put Mr. Nguyen, Vice President, Vietnamese Steel Corporation. Okay? Then, there should be a space in here. Then you'll have another space here. Dear Mr. Nguyen. Or maybe it's Ms. Okay? Now, some advertisements, it'll just say, apply to the company, and you don't know who the person is that's going to receive it. Okay? Then you should write here, dear sir or madam. Okay? Some people write here, to whom it may concern. Yeah. That's also okay, but personally, I think dear sir or madam sounds more respectful. Okay? The first line should say, there should be another space. And then you'll have a paragraph. I'm responding to the ad. So if they did an advertisement, say, I'm responding to that ad, and say something about the ad where you saw it. I saw your advertisement in Mechanical Engineering Magazine. I'm interested in the job. Okay? Now, you might decide to apply for jobs at big companies that you know about, even though they didn't put an advertisement out for a job or you didn't see it, you're just interested in that company. Like, I understand, I think I read in the news that Honda is going to build a new motorcycle factory in Vietnam. Okay, so maybe you'd like to apply for a job at the Honda motorcycle factory. And you haven't seen an advertisement yet for any of those jobs, but you know that in that factory they're going to have some engineers. So you just write to them. In that case, instead of saying I'm responding to an ad, you would just say, I'm interested in the possibility of a job with you, your company, at your new motorcycle factory, or something like that. Okay? So anyway, this is like your purpose. That's the purpose of the letter. So if you're looking for a job, that's it. Except remember, we're not going to say I'm looking for a job. It's going to sound much more sophisticated, and you're going to try to use words that make it sound like you're the well-qualified person that they should want, not the other way around. You're not like, oh, please give me a job. Right? It should be the other way around. They should be saying, oh, please work for me, please work for me. So you say, I'm interested in you advertise for a job and I'm well qualified. I think I'm well qualified for this position. Okay, then another space. Then another paragraph. And this paragraph will have summary of qualifications. I'm very well qualified for this job because, and then you list some of the qualifications. Again, back to the English thing. I know that your company is involved in a lot of international trade, and I'm proficient in English. I studied engineering for 5 years in English. Okay, that's got to be worth something. Your company requires skills in dynamics. In my mechanical engineering education, I took several courses in dynamics and received grades of A+ in every course. You could list some of the specialties that you know about dynamics. If they're asking for dynamics, you could say, I understand about inertia, I understand about acceleration, I can draw a free body diagram, and I can write a program in C++. It could be, whatever you want to put in here. But the summary, the things that make you well qualified for that job. It's an advertisement. Yes, you're an engineer, but you're also a salesperson. And what are you selling?
The salary.
Yeah, you're selling yourself. So you want to put yourself in the best possible package. Make yourself as pretty as possible, so they can't live without you. Oh yeah, we thought to hire this person. Holy cow! How did our company ever survive for 150 years and make $3 billion without this person? How do we do that? It's impossible. Look how well qualified they are. We couldn't have done. It must have been magic. We just got lucky. Now we can hire a person who's going to make it work. Okay, Honda, worldwide sales $150 billion. But your letter is so good. You're so well qualified. How could they possibly have had a company that made $150 billion without you? It doesn't seem it's impossible. They have to have you. That's what you're trying to do. Okay? Alright, so the summary of the qualifications. Then I think it's a good thing to put in another paragraph that says how to contact you, or how to follow up. Right? So some offer for more discussion. If you're interested in discussing this position with me, please contact me at this address, or call me at this phone number, or send me email at this email address. Anything that you want to offer to them to have more discussion with next. And then thank you for your consideration. And then last, sincerely, put your name, okay? And in here you should have spaces. Spaces in between each of those, okay? Now, another format of this letter that I think also looks really good, looks very professional, is to take the date part and have another tab. This should be, over here, you should also have about 1.25 inches. By the way, in centimeters, that should be about, three centimeters is probably okay. That's probably big enough. So 3 centimeters on each side. If you're going to do that, come over here a little bit more than halfway. So maybe to right about here, something like 60% and 40%. Set a tab here, and then move certain things over to that side of the page. One would be the date. So you put the date over there. And the other thing you would move over there is the sincerely. Okay. So this would move over. Okay. So now it's like having two places on the page where you have left justification. There's the left side of the page where you put the letter and the address of the person who's getting it. The right side of the page has the date and your information. So that's the idea. And another thing you can do is you can create a so-called letterhead. I think this isn't a bad idea. If you're going to create a letterhead, what will be different about that is the first thing at the top of the page, instead of date, well, you'll still have date, but it'll be moved down a little bit. And above that, you'll have some permanent contact information about yourself. And that should definitely be on the right side over here. So 60/40. And you'll have over here your name and your address. So you've probably gotten letters from companies where at the top of the page somewhere there's a symbol of the company. right? And maybe their corporate symbol, and it has their address, it might have their phone number, it might have their website, something like that. And the letter is down below that. Every letter, they send out 1 million letters like that to all their customers, and all of those letters have the same thing at the top from that company. So you can create it for you become your own company. So put in your name and your address, and every letter you send will have that at the very top of it. Okay? And I think if you do this, you should use a different font. Yeah. So that it doesn't look exactly like the font that the actual letter is in. So it will be clear that this is like background information, permanent information, and this is the new letter that you're writing specifically to that company. So the most common font I think you should use for this part of the letter would be 12 point Times New Roman. That's what I would propose. Okay? And for this font over here, use something like 11 point Arial Sans. I think it's called Arial Sans. I know those look a little bit different, but they're both very professional looking. So I just suggest that. Some people for this part will also make it italic. Right? Italic means slanted. Yeah. So it doesn't look like the rest of the letter. That's a good idea. At the bottom, when you put sincerely, that should look like this. Sincerely, comma. Then you would have 2 spaces. And then you print your name. Okay? When you mail the letter, before you mail the letter, in these spaces, you write it. It's a signature, handwritten. Your name. So, except put your name in there. Don't put. Okay, so we put your actual name. All right, silly. It's silly. Okay. Any questions about that? Make sure you sign it. Right? You want them to know that this is personal to them. What you don't want them to do is you don't want them to think that you're just sending out 1 million letters that are totally impersonal. Every name you can get your hands on, you're just sending it out because you're really desperate for a job. You want it to look like you're very selective. You happen to really like this advertisement. You're sending it very specifically, as specific as you can make it. If there's a name with that company, you're sending it to that one name. You're not sending it to the company, you're sending it to that guy. Right? So it makes it sound like this is the job that you're really interested in and really well qualified. And you don't want it to sound like, I'm sending out 1 million letters, I'll take anything. Please, somebody, offer me something. Right? That's what you don't want it to sound like. Okay. Any questions about that? Good, because I want everybody to be really successful and remember 10%.
No way.
No way. Okay, now let's talk about your proposal. The main idea of the proposal is sell word. So you need several pieces to have a successful proposal. One piece is a convincing description of the need or the desirability of the thing that you're going to propose. Okay? So I use the example of building a new highway to Hanoi. So for this section, if you were writing a proposal for that, in this section you would have to write a convincing reason why you need a new highway to Hanoi. Why do you need a new highway? What's wrong with the current route? So you don't have to tell me this minute. I'm just saying if you were going to propose that work, you have to put it in there. Otherwise, the person that receives this proposal, they would look at this, well, why? So what? Even if you're well qualified to build a highway, even if your price for building the highway is reasonable, if they don't think they need a new highway, they're not going to buy it. It's like you getting a letter from the mobile phone company. Yeah, it's a cool phone. Yeah, the price is reasonable, but I already have a pretty good phone. So why do I need another phone? Right? They have to convince you that there's something about it that you need or that you want. So either need or desirability or both. And this often requires you to do a lot of research. The reason why you want to do a lot of research is because you want to sound really convincing. You can't say, I think it would be nice to have a new highway to Hanoi. That's not convincing. What is convincing is to say, in the last 10 years, there have been 4,921 traffic fatalities on the highway between Tai Nguyen and Hanoi. This human toll is too high. In addition, a high-speed highway would enable traffic to go back and forth in 45 minutes. On the current road, it takes between 1.5 hours and 2 hours. Considering that there's 10,000 trucks per day hauling goods back and forth between the cities at a cost of 10,000 dong per hour, the lost productivity of the current highway is 12 trillion dong a year, whatever it is. But you're doing the homework, you're figuring all this out. So you convince them, wow, this current road, thousands of people are getting killed, it costs trillions of dong in lost productivity. It makes sense that we should have a new highway, right? You want to convince them. Okay. The second thing you have to do, you have to convince them that you're the right person to do this job. So the first thing is to convince them that they need this. And the second thing is to convince them that they should get you to do it. Right? So you have to make a case that you have the qualifications, you have the experience, you have the ability. And you don't have to have it all yourself, but you do have to be convincing that the parts that you don't have, you know how to get them and you know where to get them. Right? So you might end up doing some subcontracting, for instance. So Casper asked me a minute ago if a proposal is like a contract, and I said the proposal is when you ask somebody if they want to be a partner. If they agree, then you write a contract. So now I have a contract to build a highway to Hanoi. I convince the government in this part, then I convince them that I'm qualified, but I'm not going to go out there and put the pavement on the road, right? I'm going to hire another company that's going to actually put the pavement on the road. My job is to manage the whole project, to make sure that the route is good, to make sure that the surface is good, do the engineering part of it, but I'm going to subcontract the pavement. And so in this part, I also have to convince them that I can pull that off too, that I know who the subcontractors are, I know who's a reliable paving company, I know how much they're going to cost because that's going to be part of the total budget, right? So this is important that you do a lot of research on the subcontract too, if you need a subcontract. Then, of course, the last thing, or maybe not the last thing, but the other big thing is the cost. You have to be realistic, but at the same time, you might be in a very competitive environment, right? So your best chance of winning the contract is to be inexpensive, to look like a bargain, but then you don't want to work for free or lose money. You have to make sure that you're not going to lose money on it. So it's tricky. So this is also something that you should spend a lot of time to think about. What is a reasonable cost for me to charge for this person? Okay. So in my career, I've done a lot of international contracting, where somebody in another country outside of the U.S. hires me to do something, including, for instance, me being here, right? So when I agree on the price, I have to take into account that travel to that other country is expensive for me. But there's also other hidden costs. I have a house back in the United States. I'm gone for 2 months. right? I have expenses associated with that house that I have to pay while I'm gone. I don't want the house to just fall down or have rats move in or something like that while I'm gone. I need to hire somebody to help take care of the house while I'm away. I have to think of all these things in advance and make sure that the money that I get paid is enough to compensate. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense, right? I end up losing money. I do work, and I lose money. I'm paying for doing the work instead of the way it should be. Right? I should be getting paid. So you want to be very, very careful on the cost. Okay? Then another thing that you need is the schedule. I'm going to build the new road to Hanoi. It will be done in the year 2117. I promise. We'll be finished in 106 years, I promise. Okay, that's not good. For one thing, if you convince somebody that they really need the work, then probably they're going to be in a hurry. So again, it's a little bit tricky here because to compete successfully for the project, you probably want to try to convince the person that there's a big need. So they're going to be in a hurry. But you don't want to promise something that you can't deliver. You want to make sure it's a reasonable estimate. So you have to be really careful here. You want to make it as fast as you can, but you can't promise something too fast because a lot of contracts will end up having penalty clauses. What is a clause? A clause is like a condition, right? So the contract will have lots of clauses in it. Each one is like a separate rule. And there will be a section of the contract, in most cases, that will have penalty clauses in them. Penalties are a reduction in what they're going to pay you if you don't do some of the things that you promised you would do in the contract. And there's almost always a penalty clause for a delay in the schedule. So if I get a big contract to build the highway to Hanoi and I promise I'll be finished by, I don't know, June of 2013, then the penalty clause might say, beginning in July of 2013, you lose 10% for every month until the highway is finished. Okay? So that's a lot of money. So you want to make sure that your schedule is reasonable. On the other hand, though, if you say, I'll be finished in June of 2113, they're not going to buy it because that's too long. So it has to be a good schedule that they're interested in, but at the same time, it can't be too fast for you to deliver. And that's the last thing. Deliverables. Okay? So when you sign the contract, when you get to the final legal agreement, it's a legal agreement. Right? It's an obligation on both sides. You have to perfectly agree on what it is that you're agreeing to. So when I say I'm going to build a highway to Hanoi, that's not nearly specific enough. In the contract, they're going to want to say, how wide is the road? Right? How thick is the pavement? What is the support? What is the maximum weight of the vehicles that can go back and forth on the road? How tight are the turns going to be? What's the maximum speed? If you make the road too curvy, cars can't go fast anymore. Right? All of those things, all of those very specific things become part of the deliverables. So in the end, I'm going to deliver to you a highway to Hanoi. I guarantee it's going to be at least 15 meters wide. I guarantee it'll hold up a truck at least 50 tons in weight. I guarantee the bridges that go over the rivers will be above the flood stage of the river. Right? I have to guarantee a lot of things depending on what they want. And that's all going to be written down as a deliverable. And again, there will be penalty clauses. So if I don't deliver something I said I'm going to deliver, it's going to cost me money. If I promise a 15-meter highway, and they find one place between here and Hanoi where it's 14 meters, 14.5 meters, I might lose 10%, 20%. So the deliverable is a very precise description of exactly what you're agreeing to provide, what they are agreeing to pay for. It needs to be precise. Otherwise you get screwed. Yeah, it's in English. It's a slang word. It means you won't be happy with it. Okay, any questions about it? So here's the assignment. There are 13 groups. All 13 groups are going to give me a proposal. Pretend like I'm the Bank of Switzerland or somebody else that has a huge stack of money sitting in a room somewhere. And you want some of that money in order to do work. And so you're gonna come up with some really useful thing or some really desirable thing. And then you're gonna make a convincing description that I should spend money on this. Right? I should spend money on it. So I gave the example of the highway to Hanoi, and my description of the need was based on things like people getting killed on the current road, it's too expensive because of the delays in the shipping, it costs a lot of money. But maybe what you're going to propose is that you develop an iPod. So nobody exactly needs an iPod, but you make a convincing case that, man, if you could build an iPod, everybody would want one. And we could build one for, if we mass produce 1 million of them, we could make it for $10. We could sell it for $100. Everybody who's involved in this project would get rich. So I need you to put up the money in the beginning. That's what you're asking for the sponsor. You put up the money in the beginning to help us design and build it. We need to pay salaries of engineers for 1 year. And 1 year from now, we'll have a design that will make us all rich. Right? And your share after that, maybe down here in the cost and the deliverables, we promise to deliver the design in 1 year. We also promise that you can have 50% of the profit after that. We'll keep 50% of the profit. Right? So that could be part of your proposal. It's not based on need, it's based on desirability. Okay, anybody have any questions? The proposal needs to have enough work in there to keep you busy and pay your salary for at least 6 months. So don't give me a proposal for such a small project that's less than 6 months. Okay? I want you to make money at this. So one of the things you're going to need to do some research on when you're doing the cost, I want you to do research on current salaries of engineers in Vietnam. So maybe when you graduate, your group decides, the 5 of us, how many people are in your group? 5. Okay, so the 5 people in your group, you're going to build your own company. You're going to have your own company. Advanced Dynamic Systems Incorporated. Okay? How is your company going to stay in business? You're going to stay in business by selling your work. So you send me a proposal to keep your company in business for at least 6 months. It has to have enough money in it for 6 months. So that means the cost of your company will be the salaries for 5 people for 6 months, the additional cost of having employees for 6 months, like maybe there are taxes you have to pay the government, maybe you have to buy health insurance, whatever it is, all those costs. The cost of having an office. If you rent a building downtown, you need to rent 5 rooms, so each person has an office. Maybe there's another room for a secretary, and you have to hire a secretary to manage the business of the company. All of that is part of your cost for 6 months. Right? So your proposal to me needs to have enough money to cover 6 months of existence. Okay. I think Andy told me one day that he talked a little bit about overhead. Have you heard about overhead? I want you to include overhead in your cost. This is a very, very real cost. Okay? So overhead refers to the general expenses that aren't necessarily part of one project. So I was just using the example that this group of 5 people from Dynamics, when they graduate, they decide they're going to make their own company. So part of their company is to go rent an office in downtown Tai Nguyen, and they have to hire somebody to be the secretary, to take the mail, send the mail out. They have to hire a couple of computers. Right? An engineering company has to have computers. You have to pay for an internet connection. You have to be part of the web. You need to maintain a website. Maybe you hire a professional to maintain the website. So all of those kinds of expenses are part of being a company, no matter what work you're doing. And inside of your company, you want to have air conditioning. So that's going to cost some electricity. You want to have lights. That's more electricity. Right? You want to have water. You pay for the water. Maybe you want to have food have lunch every day, so you hire somebody to bring lunch every day. All of those expenses are part of running the company that aren't really part of one project. So general expenses like that of running a company that aren't part of one project, those go into a category that's usually called overhead. Sometimes it's called indirect. Indirect cost. Okay? So as an example, this room, right? The cost of running this course to Dynamic University of Technology, it's not just the salary of the instructor. Somebody's paying for the electricity that runs all this equipment. Somebody paid to build this building in the first place. That was a big expense. And that expense maybe gets divided over a lot of classes over a lot of years. But still, if you do that division, even with a big number in the denominator, it was a big number in the numerator, the original cost. So the cost per class could be a lot of money just to build a room. Right? Then the AV person comes in every day. She makes a lot of money, right, to run the camera. So you have to pay for her. Over in the administration building, Mrs. Ma, the vice rector, Mr. Tay, Professor Tay.
He's the rector now.
Okay, he's the rector now. Yep. So those people all, part of their salary, part of their work has to do with running the advanced program. So part of their salary should be generated by the cost of the advanced program. So if you add all that together, the total cost of running this course is a lot higher than the cost of the instructor's salary. That's a relatively small piece. So it's the same idea with the company. If you build your own factory, or you build your own office building, that's going to cost a lot of money for a long time to pay that off. You get a little bit of that out of each project that you do, but you have to get some of it out of each project or you can never pay for it. That's the so-called indirect cost, the overhead. So when you give me your proposal, be sure you have an estimate of indirect costs. Now, for most companies, this is calculated as a percent of direct cost. And direct cost is the direct cost of doing that project. So your direct cost could be your salaries, could be some benefit that you have to pay on top of your salary, like health insurance or something like that. If you have to buy supplies to do this project, it would be supplies. If you have to buy, if you have to travel, maybe you have to travel down to Ho Chi Minh City and meet some other experts down there. So that's a direct cost, part of this project. Right? All of those things are the direct costs. So when you make up the cost for your project, in the budget, you have a lot of direct costs, and at the end of all the direct costs, you take some percentage of that, and you add it as an indirect cost. And most American universities, just to give you an idea, American universities do lots of contract work all the time. A typical indirect cost is between 50 to 60%. So if all of the indirect costs of doing the project add up, say, to $1 million, then when you submit the contract proposal to me, your contract proposal to me would be $1.5 million, not $1 million. 50%, $500,000 would go towards these so-called indirect costs, and $1 million would go towards the direct costs. Okay? So when you submit a proposal to me, I want to see a line item budget. I'll say what that means in a minute. Line item direct cost, and put in 50% overhead. Okay? Line item means each individual thing that there will be a direct cost for should have its own individual line. So your line item budget might have something like 10 lines in it. The first line might be salaries, and beside that there's a number. And then there's a little explanation of how you came up with that number. Right? So salaries would be, I don't know what the going rate is for engineers in Vietnam, you're going to look that up. You're going to put in a reasonable salary for yourself. You don't work for free. But let's say your salary is, I don't know, I'll make up a silly number. Your salary is $5,000 per month. Okay. So I said, let's make this at least 6 months long. Let's say you propose to work 8 months and you have 5 engineers. So that's a total of 40 salary months, right? 8 times 5. And if the rate is $5,000 per month, then on the salary line you would have $200,000, 40 times 5,000. And you would have a little explanation. 40 salary months, 5 people at 8 months at $5,000 per month. That's how you got that number. Then maybe the next line is something like health insurance, which I think isn't an issue because there's a good national health insurance plan. But in the U.S. we have terrible health plan. Our national health plan doesn't really exist. So every person must go and buy their own health insurance. And that's a big expense. So I might have then this, on the next line, health insurance for 6 months.
The company, yes, pay.
Well, usually if you work for a company, if you work for a big company, they will pay your health insurance. But if you're working for yourself, like this proposal, then you have to pay for it. So health insurance might be another 10 or 20% or something of salary. So that's the next line at the direct cost might be health insurance for 6 months, 20% of salary. Right? So some explanation. The next line could be travel expenses to go meet the experts in Ho Chi Minh City. Reasonable travel expense. Go look up the airfare, look at the airlines, look up the airfare, look up a reasonable hotel cost, put in a reasonable food cost if you have to eat in restaurants in Ho Chi Minh City. For how many days you're there, add up all those days, that's a new line item. Maybe those experts in Ho Chi Minh City are just like you. They're another company like this. You're going to subcontract them. So you're going to have to pay them to do the work for you. That's a line item in your contract with me. You need me to give you enough money so that you can pay them to do what they need to do for you. Okay? So I've already said 4 things. A salary, some kind of benefit like health insurance. I've said travel. I've said hiring other experts. What other kinds of direct costs might you have? Maybe you need to do some experiments and you don't have the equipment, right? You're a brand new company. You just have a little office. You need a big special machine to do experiments. And that machine exists over here at TNUT. But Rector Fan, who has to be concerned about the budget at the university, is not going to let you use that machine for free. You're going to have a subcontract with Rector Fan so that you can come use the machine for 1 week and you have to pay him something. That's another line item in there. And when you use the machine, maybe you have to go to the store and buy some equipment for the machine because the machine itself isn't enough. It also needs some supplies. It's another line item. Okay? So your line item budget that's going to come back to me, maybe you'll have 10 or 20 things in it. Maybe 5, whatever you need. Then you add all of those together, and then you'll have one more item, which is 50% overhead, and then you'll have the total total. Okay? Sound interesting? Okay, now in the U.S., as you know, the U.S. has a pretty good track record in the last few decades of innovating all kinds of high-tech products, like Apple, for instance. So in the U.S., this is how people get those jobs. Somebody like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or somebody writes a proposal like this, and they go to somebody else that has money, and they propose that they become partners. And this is exactly how it works. This is how they get started. And the guys with the money are often called angel investors. What's an angel?
The guy with the wings.
Yeah, the guy with the wings. Angel is supposed to be like the assistant of God. And angels normally they come and they do something really wonderful that really helps somebody on earth. That's the idea. So we have this terminology. It's kind of bad terminology probably. But there are people running around the U.S. that actually have a lot of money. And they're looking for somebody that has a brilliant idea so that they can both get rich together. And those are called angel investors. So I want you to pretend like I'm the angel investor. And you're going to come to me with a good, reasonable proposal. But actually, I don't want it to only be for money. You can either do money or you can do something like the highway to Hanoi, because the world needs it. So either way, you can think about me either like a government agency that's supposed to do the right thing for the country, so you're going to make a proposal that makes good sense for the government, or you can think of me like a business angel investor, and the thing you're going to propose to me will make us both rich. So either way, it's okay. the proposal that you give me should probably have somewhere between 5 and 10 pages. Okay? Writing this section, for instance, convincing description of the need and desirability, this should probably be at least 1 page. Okay? Then, this part, a convincing description that you can do it, this also will be at least as long as the first one. When I say convincing description, I mean you really have to have the details. You have to show that you know what it will take. If you propose to make an MP3 player, a new MP3 player, okay, first you have to convince that we need a new MP3 player. But then you have to convince that you know how to do it, that you have a good enough idea that I should put some money into it. So this means you have to write out some technical description. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to get integrated circuits. We're going to have a big random access memory. We're going to put this new file format in. So this description could take 1 or 2 pages. So these 2 pieces together should probably be at least 3 or 4 pages. And then cost will be a line item. That'll be like a table, maybe something like a half a page. The schedule will also be a table. You know, we propose to begin the project on September 1st. By October 1st, we will have blah, blah, blah. By November 1st, by, some schedule like that. It doesn't have to be every month. It could be 6 months from now, we're going to have this. But whatever the schedule was, this is how we're going to finish it. And then a description, here's what we're going to give you. When it's all, we agree at the end that we will provide these things to you in exchange for the funding, for the funds. Then we can negotiate. This is just a proposal. It's not the contract. But the thing that you propose, you want to make it as close to what you want to see in the contract as you possibly can. All right, so let's talk about the schedule of all the things that are out there right now. So you have your journal papers. Probably there's no reason to have to come to class just to hand that in. All right, so I'm done lecturing. From now on, everything that happens in class is going to be you presenting something. So the next thing we're going to do are those famous people presentations. So why don't we start those? I'm going to a conference this weekend in Da Nang, so I'm not sure I'm going to be back on Monday morning. Friday is too early. Let's start those next Tuesday. How's that? I'm sorry? The famous people, everybody has their own famous person. Right? You're supposed to be writing the Word document that we talked about last time. You're also supposed to prepare a PowerPoint presentation. Everybody's going to get up and present their famous person using PowerPoint. You're going to have their name and their picture, and you're going to say where they were born and when they died and what they did, all that stuff. Okay? Yeah, I'll get to that in a minute. So beginning on Tuesday, we're going to do the PowerPoint presentation. Okay? I'm going to pick your names at random, so everybody has to be ready on Tuesday morning. But because there's 70, I don't think we'll do 70 PowerPoints in a day. That'll probably take 2 days to do these people. So let's say next Thursday, in 1 week, you should have this one done in a week. You have the resume. Yeah, let's do that. So let's write this down so we agree. Okay, the journal assignment, it's written only. Everybody should already have it finished, right? I guess I could just take it now, or you This could be next, we'll make this on next Friday. This is for Tuesday, here's the summary of the assignments that are left in the class. There's basically 4 categories, right? The journal article you should have already done, but I heard a little bit of suggestion that you don't want to do it right away, so okay. But that's okay, I'll give you a little bit of extra time. Tuesday, you hand those in, they're written. Those should be written down. Also on Tuesday, be ready with your famous person. Everybody's going to do an oral PowerPoint and present their famous person, and you're going to hand in that Word document. So figure out a way to do that Word document. You can email it to me, but I think I prefer it if you just bring a thumb drive or something like that. We want to put them all together in one big book. So bring those on next Tuesday. Work on your resume and your cover letters. That's written only. Be prepared to get this to me on next Friday, a week from this Friday, 9 days. You don't have to present this. Print it. Yeah, write it down and print it. Okay? Please listen. So, for the resume and the cover letter, quiet. For the resume and the cover letter, you should do this, write it in a Word document and computer print. Nice looking, like you're all ready to send it. Maybe you will. Right? Maybe start looking for a job right away. Why not? Okay, the last assignment is the proposal. So those are in the groups of 5. You decide in your group how you want to present it. You could have everybody present one piece. You could have one person present the whole thing. It's totally up to you. But make an oral presentation. And again, I want you to imagine that either I'm a government official with the money or an angel investor. But one way or another, your group is trying to be convincing. Right? You have to convince somebody that they should invest in. So make a nice oral presentation. And also hand in a written document that would have all those pieces I just showed. Something like 5 pages, 5 to 10 pages. Yeah, the oral should be in PowerPoint. And in your oral presentation for the proposal, I recommend, for instance, if you put in some nice pictures, maybe you want to put in even some dynamics, some movie clips or something. Maybe you can find that. If you're good at PowerPoint, you can show off a little bit. PowerPoint